The Rafale quickly became one of my favorite top tiers in the game, and while there are a few things that disappoint me about it, overall I think that this is, again, one of the most competitive planes in the game right now, alongside its little brother, the Mirage 2000, and arguably, some of you might rather play the Mirage 2000 still over the Rafale, all of which we're going to discuss in today's video. Like the Eurofighter, the Rafale seems to be unfinished in certain areas. For example, the radar still is, it seems to be placeholder. They're upgrading it, they're making changes, they're making it a little bit nicer to use, but overall, as far as I know, this radar is supposed to be ASA, and currently it is not, so I expect this radar to improve. That said, in my personal experience, this radar has been a little bit nicer to use than the Eurofighter's radar, both of which though feel pretty scuffed, and it is a big disappointment at the planes. Thankfully though, for the Rafale, most of your engagements are going to be used with your HMD, and for the most part it works pretty well, at least as well as most HMDs do. There are a lot of bugs, it seems, with HMD. Sometimes they just don't lock planes properly, and that's true for all radars at top tier and all HMDs at top tier. The biggest thing I think for me with the Rafale is that the HMD seems to lock chaff way too easily, and most top tiers aren't doing that. And so while it does fail to lock planes sometimes just straight up like everything else, the chaff issue does seem a little bit more specific to the Rafale and the Eurofighter. Now I did say that you might still rather play the Mirage 2000 over the Rafale, so why is that? Well, it really comes down to two main things. The first one being that the Rafale can only carry 32 flares as of right now. It's rumored to maybe be able to get a little bit more. I think there's a bug report out for it right now that to my knowledge hasn't necessarily been denied, so we'll see what happens there, but for right now it has 32 flares maximum, and this is something that I was really worried about. I thought it could be a real big issue, but as crazy as it seems, I have yet to have that be a problem, and that just comes down to everybody's using Fox 3 anymore. There's really rarely any instances where you have to flare away IR missiles. Usually it's going to be a 9M or an ET that's sucking down all of your flares, but typically it's going to be like one or two of those a game that you're flaring away max. And so the 32 flares is surprisingly still usable, and I haven't ever actually ran out of them in real matches. The second thing though is that you only get 6 maximum missile pylons, and whether it be Magic 2 on the outer ones or the MICAs, you can only carry 6. And so naturally, you're just going to carry 6 MICAs because these things are absolutely God's favorite missile in the entire world, it seems like, and you'd really be doing yourself a disservice by taking the Magic 2s. Even though the Eurofighter has better 1v1 dogfight performance, in real situations, I would say the Rafale is going to be beating the Eurofighter 1 versus 1 pretty much every time, and it's because of these missiles right here. It's situations exactly like you see on screen that is going to make the Eurofighter have a very, very hard time beating you in a 1 versus 1 because of your thrust vectoring MICAs. Think about how bad the Su-27 is at 1v1 in planes, guns only. Now think about how bad it is with R-73s on board, and it becomes significantly harder to defeat. You actually have to put some work in order to avoid the R-73 death. Well, with the Rafale, you have a very similar situation, but your flight model is actually good. It's not complete dog shit like the Su-27s. And on top of that, the MICA is radar guided, and so actually countering it is much more difficult than the R-73 is. You're going to have to put yourself out of position to be in a position where you can notch this thing at close range, giving the Rafale the advantage on angle, or you're just going to be eating the MICA anyways if you try to deny him the gunshot. And so while yes, technically the Eurofighter is the better 1 versus 1 plane when you're talking guns only, if missiles are allowed, I have a very hard time envisioning the Eurofighter consistently beating the Rafale. In fact, I personally don't see it really happening at all. I think the Rafale is probably going to be winning most of those engagements unless you're extremely good at the game. You know exactly what to do in all situations, which, let's be honest, 99% of Eurofighter players aren't going to be. And even in BVR, I would say that the Rafale is going to beat everything in the entire game, including the Typhoon, which you just saw on screen as to why, and that applies to pretty much everything you face. And the reality is BVR doesn't really exist in War Thunder. Sure, it actually does, and you do get kills from 30 kilometers. I'm not disagreeing with that, it does happen, but we all know how the Fox 3 engagements ultimately devolve, and we know that they're just going to be high off bore, HMD slinging, Fox 3, notch and chaff as quick as you can engagements, and there's nothing that's going to be beating MICA carrying planes in these situations, and the Rafale only does it that much better now that the flight model is improved over the Mirage 2000. Granted, in that Eurofighter clip, I was on him a lot longer. He was cold and then had to turn back into me to shoot his, but even if we were even the entire time, the result would have been the same. It would have just taken more missiles and more tries to get to it. The AMRAAM cannot pull in that 6-kilometer range at those low speeds in that kind of situation, and the MICA, I can shoot damn near 90 degrees off to the left or right of my plane at 6 kilometers and it's still going to find the target. In any kind of isolated matchup, I have a very difficult time seeing this plane lose to literally anything in the entire game. Now, if we want to talk about things more broadly in the terms of 16 versus 16 air realistic battles, sure, I'm not going to disagree with you that there might be better planes. I personally don't think so. As I said, I'd rather be in the MICA carrying planes. I personally feel like I have the most control over my matches. I can defend myself the easiest, and I can handle situations on my own better in both the Mirage 2000 and the Rafale than anything else. However, when it comes to getting the snowball rolling, or, you know, getting the match in your team's favor early game, having early game presence, I'm not going to argue with you that there's probably better planes like the F-15E and the Eurofighter. It just comes down to what you prefer, what you think makes your top tier the best fit for you, and this is all just opinion. Back to speaking on the Rafale as a whole, again, you have 2 less missiles than the Mirage 2000, and so if you want to take the Mirage 2000 over the Rafale, if you still think that the Mirage 2000 is probably overall the most competitive plane in the game, I also wouldn't disagree with that. But me personally, since both of them carry 6 MICAs and the Rafale has a considerably better flight model, the flight performance on this thing is a major upgrade over the 2000, just because the 2000 is a little slow when it comes to the thrust to weight side of things. I personally think that the trade-off is worth it. I don't think Magic 2s are that useful in most situations. Usually I can find about one situation every game where I do want a Magic 2, but it's really not the end of the world. I think the 6 MICAs are your bread and butter, and the Rafale still has that. I do absolutely wish it carried 8 missiles, whether it be 2 additional missiles being Magic 2s or just 8 MICAs. That would be pretty sick, and I hope to see that someday, maybe on a newer Rafale, but it is what it is for now. I like it nonetheless as it is. I can already see the comments, and you've probably already typed it out and posted it and aren't going to watch into this point in the video anyways if this is something you're saying, but I like the Rafale's flight model because of the fact that it has MICAs. The weapon kit that this plane has suits the plane. The Eurofighter, very similar flight model in terms of speed bleed. You have those slats that are draining your energy constantly all of the time. So why do I hate on the Eurofighter's flight model and not the Rafale's? Again, it just comes down to the weapon kit. The Rafale knows what it wants to be, and it does that extremely well. The Eurofighter, I think, would really benefit from having MICAs and close range IR missiles as well, whether it be R-73, Magic 2, I don't really care. But the Typhoon's weapon kit is very long range, and while it can go fast and while it can do BVR, it doesn't seem like it fits the plane. It seems like that plane is meant to do the same kind of stuff that the Mirage 2000 does, that the Rafale does, and its weapons are just going to limit it from doing that as effectively as possible, unlike the Rafale and the Mirage 2000. Those high off-bore shots with the AMRAAM and the AIM-9M just aren't going to work nearly as effectively as it would with, say, an R-73 or a Magic 2 or, of course, MICA missiles. I think that the loadout is very contradicting to the way the plane wants to fly. Of course, it's still a good plane, it's still usable without a doubt. You could definitely say it's one of the best in the game. I just personally don't feel like it is definitively the best plane in the game. As far as what to expect, again, just like the Eurofighter, this radar should be better. I expect it to get better. It should be ASA. As far as the missile pylons, a lot of people think that it should have 8, and I believe the later versions of the Rafale do carry 8 missiles, but not this one. As far as I know, this one does only carry 6, and I believe GAIJIN has denied the bug report about it carrying 8 because it's just not true. This carries 6, and so I don't expect to see 6 missiles on this plane for the foreseeable future. And again, as far as the 32 flares, I've heard that a bug report was submitted that says basically it should have about 80 flares, but the rest of them would be small caliber instead of large caliber. Again, I don't know the validity of this, so I don't know if it's actually going to come to fruition or not, but again, what I have heard is that GAIJIN hasn't exactly denied the bug report. I don't know if they've accepted it or are looking into it or not either. So there's still hope. Let me know in the comments down below if you know for sure about the amount of flares this plane should have. As far as MICA IR missiles go, that's not going to happen anytime soon, so I would not be waiting around for those. They'd just be way too strong. That's going to be it for the Rafale. I hope you guys enjoyed. Let me know what you think in the comments down below, and I'll see you later.